Guys, apologize for the video, but I figured that this would be the best way to get the information out without having to schedule a meeting. We've had a lot of conversations with ADs and other coaches to figure out the best way to get a full season in for these kids. The challenge is that everybody's kind of starting at different times. So I'm going to just jump right into it here. We felt that it was best to create two divisions based upon geography this year. We wanted to try to schedule only a couple weeks at a time, 1 or 2 weeks at a time, anticipating that we might run into some challenges as we move forward. We wanted to play opponents in back-to-back 2-game series. So you'll play a certain school either like on a Tuesday, Wednesday or a Tuesday, Thursday before you move on to your next set of games on a Friday, Saturday, let's say. The front part of the schedule is going to be a little bit busier, just with the notion of getting as many games in as we can before we might run into an issue. But then it starts to loosen up as we go on, and I'll show you that in a minute. We're trying to schedule each series within a 4-day window. So if you have a Monday through Thursday window, trying to get games in, if you choose to get them back-to-back on a Tuesday, Thursday, it gives you a practice before your series and then another practice after before you're running into your next opponent. And the recommendation right now is, for the schools that haven't been board approved yet, get your 6 sessions in ASAP. If you can't get ice, get your group of kids together, use a day for conditioning, and that could still count towards your 6 sessions. Like I said, we wanted to break the divisions up by geography, and right now that worked out great because a lot of the Albany County schools we're still waiting on. Even in the North Division, most of the schools are Saratoga County. Queensbury, we're hoping that they get approved in the next few days here. So we are going to move ahead with scheduling for the North Division right now for the teams that are ready. And once we learn that the teams are, when your start date is going to be in the South Division, we'll get matchups out to you. We've got the way I've been kind of working this out. If you were to take a look at this, if you're grayed out, that means you're not available to play. If you see yellow, that means you've indicated to me that you can host a game on these days. And the numbers here just indicate what we think is going to be your practices before you are, in fact, eligible to play. So as I look down, in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit busy. I'll take Saratoga, for example. We're going to try to get their games 1 and 2 within this first block. There's a 4-day block where they'll get their first 2 games against their first opponent, and then they'll go right into early next week over vacation, getting 2 more games in against their next opponent. There's a little bit of overlap here. They could choose to go Tuesday, Wednesday and use Thursday as a practice day, and then go Friday, Saturday, or even Friday, Sunday. And the matchups are all going to be based on, what your rink availability is. We're going to let coaches decide what works best for them. But that's basically how we're trying to put this together. If you were to look this in the bigger picture for the teams that are ready to play right now, we can get all 10-year games, against the other 5 teams in your division. We could wrap that all up by that early in the first week of March. Leaves a little bit of time for makeups. Got some ideas of what we could do in this time frame right here before we get into our final week, which we hope to have a playoff with the other division. Okay. Now the South Division with the Albany teams, even though you're starting a little bit later, it kind of works out that you only have 5 teams in your division as opposed to the North Division that has 6, which would mean after you play your home and homes with your opponents, you're looking to get 8 games in before you get to the end of your time before playoffs. Okay, so really quickly, looking ahead at just the first couple weeks, Shen would play Burnt Hills, and Saratoga would play Niskayuna. LaSalle remains idle. And then as soon as Queensbury comes online, hopefully that all works out, we would move into these matchups. Once Queensbury comes online, their first matchup would be against LaSalle. If Queensbury is not able to get up and running next week, as they anticipate, we might need to reshuffle all the matchups during this week, which is a good reason why we're only going to do this 1 week at a time. Assuming that they are back online, if you move to week 3, you'll notice towards the end of the week, Saratoga and Burnt Hills will be sitting out. They won't have an opponent to play. They would have already played one another, and it's all because Queensbury and LaSalle are trying to catch up with making sure that they're in the same rhythm of, back-to-back games, but with a rest and then another back-to-back set of games. The theory in this is hopefully at this point, the 5-team division in the South will have been ready to get games in, being that there's an odd number of teams in the South division. Whoever does not have a matchup during this time, they could get one game against Saratoga and one game against Burnt Hills. So let's say, for instance, Guilderland didn't have an opponent to play because Bethlehem and Shaker were playing both CBA and Albany Academy. Well, Saratoga could play Guilderland on one night, and then Guilderland on the next night can come back and play Burnt Hills. So Guilderland would still get in that groove of 2 games during their window, while Saratoga and Burnt Hills, they've satisfied a lot of their games already. They could slow down their schedule a little bit. The same thing would happen again the following week when Shen and Niskayuna were to sit out. They could then get a matchup against whichever South Division team did not have a conference game to play. Once the North satisfies their schedule of playing everybody twice, we can use the remaining time as either a makeup window. We can continue to play out of division games. We could even choose to play a third non-league time against another division team, another team within our division, or you might just elect to give your kids a few extra days off before we get into our final week, which would be a playoff week. At this point, I would also recommend that all teams continue to schedule their games in the Section 2 website as they've done in the past. If you're going to play each other twice, each year games is going to be worth 1 point. In the South, if you run into a time crunch and you only are able to get one game in against a certain opponent just because of virtue of time, I think we agree to just make those games worth 2 points. In the North Division, if, for instance, you decided to play the same opponent a third time because you had a really good matchup, maybe we just call those non-league games. And in the end, we could use points percentages to figure out seedings, and then determine a fair playoff system for that last week of games. That's all for now. Like I said, we're going to just take this 1 week at a time. We'll revisit this once more teams are back online, but we needed to get a plan together, so we were ready to get going once the teams in the North got their 6 practices in. Hope you're all doing well. We'll talk soon.